All right, guys, how you doing? We're talking today about the ending of John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men. We're finishing up our unit on homelessness in America. What does it mean? What does it look like? What can we do about it? So we've just finished up reading the very end of the book, where we sadly find out that George is forced to kill his good friend Lenny due to the fact that Lenny can't control his actions and he ends up hurting innocent people. So, first of all, I'd just like to talk about the language that Steinbeck uses during not only this scene but the entire book as well. Steinbeck is using a very casual sort of Californian dialect that we would see in books like To Kill a Mockingbird or anything that Gary Soto has written. He's writing in a form where we see the characters' reality through their words, through their speech. So it's very interesting to read a novel like this because we start to get a feel from who the characters are based off words that they use. So you have a lot of broken speech, a lot of slang, words that aren't actually words. You're not going to find them in the dictionary. And I think that's a really cool way of showing us the point of view of these characters without explaining to us explicitly, but rather using their own voice to portray who they are as people. Um, we've been talking about how to build suspense, and of course, the standard we're covering right now is looking at point of view, analyzing how point of view creates suspense within a passage or within a story. So Steinbeck is creating suspense by having us feel. Okay, so what we're talking about here, and I'll relate this to my life a little bit. When we see George forced to kill Lenny, what we have to realize is he's the weight of this moment. He's put in a position where the only man who has ever had his back, the only man who's ever stood with him throughout the hard times, throughout the whole searching of having a home and having a place to be comfortable and rest, he is forced to shoot in the back of the head because that's the most painless way he can find to put him out of his misery. So just imagine the only person you have in the world that you get to walk the world with, you're forced to kill because other people can't live with that person. So it's a huge, huge emotional moment, and I think Steinbeck does an amazing job when he writes. And George raised the gun and steadied it, and he brought the muzzle of it close to the back of Lenny's head. The hand shook violently, but his face set and his hand steadied. Okay, during this reading, we should be looking at how is this creating suspense? How is George's point of view creating suspense, but also how is Lenny's point of view creating suspense? So if we look from George's point of view, and I relate this to my life, and I'm going to say that there are many family members that I have, two in particular, who are troubled, who never have seemed to get their life together, always need people to look out for them, and unfortunately, I can see myself in a position where someday I would have to cut ties with this person because it's no longer viable to be their family member. When someone's borrowing money from you, when somebody is crashing at your house more than you'd like, when someone is getting into troubles with the law and using your house as a hideout, some people just can't handle that, and we shouldn't be, I would say that I shouldn't be held accountable for another person's actions just because they're a family member. Sometimes, it happens. So, in this position where George is forced to get rid of someone who he's loved but is just creating so much pain in his life, his point of view is really, it's limiting our knowledge because we're not sure if he's really going to go through with it or not. Okay, when you love someone, especially if they're a family member, someone you grew up with, it's very hard to make decisions like this. This is not done easy. Just because it may be the right thing to do or the most efficient thing to do doesn't make it easy. So it's building suspense because we as readers are reading this and thinking, my God, is he really going to go through with this? Is he really going to kill somebody who has been by his side and who's been sort of his brother? What if I had to kill my brother one day, or not even kill? What if I had to tell my brother, look, you can't come over anymore. I can't see you anymore because, my wife can't stand when you're around. My wife doesn't like that you drink a lot, and it makes our children uncomfortable, and you just can't come over anymore. That same sort of cutting ties with someone, having to end an era of your life for the sake of others, is not an easy decision to make, and it's also a very daunting decision. So it's building suspense. We're thinking, man, is he really going to do this? What's going to happen next? I can't believe this is happening. We're drawn in as readers, or at least we should be, right? So, but also from the point of Lenny, Lenny is not aware that he's about to be killed. I mean, you can make an argument that maybe he was, but for the most part, we know, as we've read before, this is not an intelligent man. He's not fully aware of his actions or what he's done wrong, and he's merely talking about their dream house for the final time. He's saying, tell me, George, tell me what we're going to have. Are we going to have rabbits? Are we going to have a field? Are we going to have a farm? And meanwhile, George is pointing a gun to the back of his head. So from Lenny's point of view, it's creating suspense because we want almost to reach into the book and tell Lenny, turn around, convince him not to do it, because we love these characters. We should love these characters because they represent, people that we've seen in real life or know in real life. If you just take a look around you, guys, take a look around you, and, there's a whole political campaign that's on fire right now because people are so upset with this country. We've been talking about homelessness. We've been talking about the American dream. And men like Donald Trump are getting people riled up because he's saying, let's make America great again. And you have people on this side saying, well, we're not going to do it the way you want to do it. And you have people on this side that say, well, we do need to make America great. We don't like how things are going. We're very angry. So I think Steinbeck is showing a lot of this frustration that we should see in the world around us on a daily basis. I mean, people struggling day in and day out, 13 hours a day at a job to make minimum wage to try to feed your family, and it never seems to be enough. It's working almost until your death. Many of us have grandparents who sacrifice a lot of their lives to give to their kids so their kids could give to us. People around the world want to come to this country because of the American dream, because of what George and Lenny are chasing here in California. So I think that you should start thinking about, if we're talking about suspense and we're talking about how we get wrapped up in a situation, how we start to care about what happens next, we really have to consider the place that these two men are in. They've been working their whole lives without really anything to show for it, without their own bed, without their own roof over their head. They don't know if the next week they're going to get enough work to make money to eat. They don't know where they're going to be. These are things that happen every single day in our city, in our state, in our country, in the world. So this is happening all around us. And unfortunately, even though people aren't forced to kill each other in the same sense, people are forced to make hard decisions every single day of their lives. And I think what Steinbeck is doing here is perfectly encapsulating a type of decision that would bring a person to their knees, would pretty much challenge a person to the point of insanity. So as readers, we're left thinking, oh my God, what? He just killed Lenny? Are you kidding me? The whole book, they were supposed to make it. They were talking about making it. All they wanted was a house. That was it. Just a house and some animals to tend. And unfortunately, we see the tragic truth is George and Lenny did not make it. They did not make it. They did not get what they wanted. And that's the unfortunate reality of daily life in America for some people. So it's important that to notice Steinbeck uses dialogue to attach us to the characters, to see their dialogue, to see who they are. Excuse me. It's important to think about your family members and your friends who has been struggling, and maybe one day you'll be forced to make a decision on whether or not to cut ties with this person or to sacrifice something relating to this person because it's not viable to be in that relationship anymore. And finally, the world around us, the state our country is in, the American dream, homelessness, it's all around us. And I think Of Mice and Men, when we've been reading it, has been a perfect little novella that shows just what people can be driven to do when they're desperate. So thank you very, very much for your time. We will continue this talk at a later date.